rather systemic problems we have is our inability to govern ourselves. And I'm not trying to be disrespectful to you for it, because obviously you're out trying to do what's right for your constituents. But the perception in the community, at least insofar as I can understand it, is that New York State has ceased to be an effective government. And this is both the Senate, the Assembly, and the government. We can't resolve issues. Our ethics are in the dump. I would be ashamed to call myself a member of state government if I were some of the people who you call colleagues. And the perception is that part of the systemic problem New York State has, and obviously things like energy and healthcare and all that, we all know all that, but it's the inability to address those problems and find a resolution. What happened to statesmen? I don't see them anymore. I see politicians grabbing headlines and trying to dump any problem on across the aisle. It's not the aisle's problem. It's not the Senate's problem. It's not the Assembly's problem. And it's not the governor's problem. It's our collective problem. And until we get to a point where New York State restores this image of being able to govern ourselves effectively and create an environment where business can function and people can live without being taxed to death or regulated to death. Favorite example of mine is at the paper mill. I used to have to pay a substantial amount of money each year for a water runoff permit because I had a parking lot that was large enough, whatever that meant, so that the water that ran on the parking lot had to run off into the Black River. The parking lot sat on granite. Where was the water going to run off anyway? But we had to pay a permit for that. It's that kind of nonsense that's completely lost logic. And I'm telling you, my personal belief, we've got a bunch of young people coming up who are looking at the nonsense going on in Albany saying, what the hell should I stay in New York State for? If we cannot do a better job of addressing the problems we have collectively, we don't deserve to be there.
Can I just jump in on that real quick? Just culturally, there's a huge difference between upstate and downstate. And when you look at, I mean, if you said what's your top 10 most important issues, you're going to get a vastly different list downstate than what you're going to get upstate. Our upstate, our biggest issue, is taxes. If you ask individuals, it's taxes. Regulations. Downstate, it's I need more money for, health services. I need more money for, transportation to get to my, I need more help with my housing. That's the difference. You have a huge population of people coming in to New York City from other countries because of the services that we offer here in New York State. Those people are the ones electing the officials downstate. And in the Assembly, you've got 150 members, 65 of them are from within the 5 boroughs of New York City. Never mind, the immediate suburbs. So when you look at the legislature, you have to bear in mind that almost half of those people are coming into this, are getting elected by people who have a very different set of interests than what we experience upstate, which lends itself to part of the problem here. Because, when we sit down in the chambers and we're voting on a bill, if we're in committee and we're talking on a bill, we are vastly outnumbered. And so what we try to do is be the loyal opposition to make the case of what's going on upstate, why it's important that we take care of upstate versus what's happening downstate, how downstate is dependent on us, both agriculturally, in terms of our industry, tourism, all that stuff, good stuff is important to people downstate, to have upstate. So that to me is the big issue. And I agree with you 100%. I ran for office because I agree. New York State is dysfunctional. I think one poll number had, a 19% favorable rating. I mean, that's not lost on me. The important thing is that we get some people in there and more people in there who understand what the issues are for upstate and get the voting ability to make a difference. And I think that's what we're all trying to do here. But certainly,
well, in the Assembly, we had an MTA capital bill that passed for the city. But guess what? It didn't have an upstate capital component with it. So our infrastructure, where's the justice there? And we can vote no on it, but we're only, we're over 40 now, but we're only 40 to make sure that if there's going to be some capital improvement and infrastructure money available, that we get it up here as well. And we can yell, but our voices are still only one voice that we can yell.
Yeah, I think
The real problem we
they're the
have,
same.
and this is part of our reform, and this is one thing I think is way, I guess, not investigated enough. Our committee structure that we have in the state legislature is terrible as far as venting bills. All other states have public hearing, they bring people in, you have a full hearing, all the legislators can ask questions on a panel. You go to our committee meetings, they last about 15 minutes, the legislation flies through, we can ask questions, which we do, but then it passes by, they hold our legislation to pass. There's no real education about the bills. I mean, you look at the justification and that's about it. So that's a reform process that we advocated for, that we can call, any member could call for a public hearing on a bill so we could get full impact.